So I forgot to answer these two parts, so we'll continue with the lesson just a little bit. Fully describes graphs of x equals y squared, and x squared plus y squared equals 25. So x equals y squared is a sideways parabola, or a slanted parabola, or a sleepy parabola, or a resting parabola, but it's basically opening left and right. This one's opening to the right. And so that's the kind of thing you want to be doing here, is talking about what the parabola looks like, that it's opening to the right, that it's increasing as x gets bigger, y gets larger. It's basically backwards of what you would describe for a function. So x and y have basically switched roles in this problem. And then for this one, this is a circle with, let me start writing this one. So the first one, let me write some stuff down. So we have a sideways, it's a parabola, sideways, resting, vertex is 0, 0. The opening right, let's go with opens right. So I'm good with that one. This one is a circle, radius of 5. Center, the middle of the circle, if you will, is at 0, 0, because that's really where we shift, is we shift the center of the circle. So we've got our circle and the center of the circle. And so that's my axes. And so I take the center, I move the center, and the circle moves accordingly. So like the circle is basically the same, but I've moved it to the left and right by moving where the center of my circle is. And I know that's awkward to just move the center around, but that's the idea. Okay, so knowing where the center is a critical point. It's kind of like it's the locator point, like the vertex is a locator point, the center is a locator point. And this on D, how are the relationships different by these equations and graphs different than other relationships? The parabola is very similar to the x squared. It's just opening, it's backwards. X and y have switched roles for the parabola. So for the parabola, x and y have switched roles. But for the circle, things are very different. The circle, you have this center point, which doesn't really show up in the picture, and you've got all of that stuff going on. And so there's a lot, this is a bit more this is much more tricky, because finding it, you kind of have to already sort of know what's happening. You wouldn't just pick random numbers, like say, okay, so what if x is 5? Not x is 5. What if x is 2? What happens? And you're really limited, like x cannot be 7 because y cannot be negative. And so you have a lot of things happening with that relationship, because circles are very limited, even though they're infinite and perfect. So just kind of keep that in mind. These are two tricky things. We're going to spend some more time with them, and we'll talk about them more tomorrow. And I promised you some homework hints. So this is the stuff you were supposed to do yesterday. I'm going to skip over that. Our homework for today actually starts with 102. This is, what is this? Actually, no, that's our homework for tomorrow. Just kidding. So our homework for today. So the first thing you'll notice, we're going back to even and odd functions, which we just spoke about. I'm not going to, and then we've got some distance from a point to a line, graph and describe a function, and that stuff. Let's actually start with 101, and then we'll go back and do the other ones in a different video. So 101, we've got ABI formula. So we've got this negative 18 minus the square root of negative 25. So the square root of negative 25 can be written as 25 times the square root of negative 1, and negative 18 minus the square root of, that's a larger square root than I want, so square root of 25 and the square root of negative 1. And so negative 18 minus 5, and then the square root of negative 1 is I. And so that's all they're looking for, is for you to do that to your functions. B is a little trickier, and I probably should have done B as my example, but it's too late now. So after you do this with the numerator on B, then divide each term by 2. You'll be fine. And C is exactly the same as A, except for slightly easier. I thought I was picking the harder problem. I forgot about that fraction. So that's pretty much it for these, and I will be back in another video with some more hints.